Okay, thank you. My name is John Edelbeck. I'm the Director of Public Works. Mayor is unable to attend tonight. He may be here later. He had to attend a different event, unfortunately, with Henry, so that he may be coming in late if he gets back in time. So we'll start. We have on the agenda tonight a couple different items. Pull my agenda out. We have 3 public hearings. And we'll kind of walk through the process of the public hearings. And then we'll move on to the Plan Commission agenda. During the public hearings, it's typically we'll have a presentation on what the project is, and then we'll take testimony for and against, and we'll use that format for that. And then during the Plan Commission meeting following that, we'll have open discussion with Plan Commission members on the projects. And if you desire to speak and it's appropriate, we'll have you speak at that time from the public or from the public as well. So we'll start then calling this first City Plan Commission public hearing to order. This would be special use permit, and the time is 5 o'clock. We'll start with the special use permit, Margaret Meyer, 215 Jefferson Street. Roll call. We have Edelbeck, Keelan, Fair, Lutzy, and Olson. I don't know if he'll be here or not. Brendan, do you want to talk about the purpose of the hearing?
All right. Good evening. First on the docket is a special use permit for Margaret Meyer. The applicant is seeking a special use permit to run adult program within that location. I'll leave it to the applicant to actually make her presentation to the Plan Commission. Then if there's any questions, follow up after that.
Yeah, is Margaret here? Would she like just give us a brief description of the project or a representative? Yeah, if you could step up to the podium. We do tape the presentation, so if you give us your name and address, and we use that format the rest of the night, okay. And then we'll make sure we get you on the tape recording.
Okay. My name is Margaret Meyer, and my address for the building or my...
the building would be fine.
Okay, it's 215 Jefferson Street, Waupaca, Wisconsin, 54981. I'm coming to the committee today to ask for a special use permit to start a community-based activity program for developmentally disabled adults. Basically, what we want to do there is be able to offer adults with disability community integration and community experiences. The building itself will basically be where our site is, where we meet to go out into the community, our home community. So we would be able to go into like the local coffee shops and movie theaters and allow this population to have daily enriched experiences and, you know, have a good life.
Okay.
Questions?
There won't be any questions during this part of the public hearing, but afterwards we go to the Plan Commission agenda, then we might have questions at that point.
All right.
Okay, so purpose of the hearing has been read, and testimony in favor of the subject. Is there anybody testifying in favor of the subject? Please step up to the podium. Testimony in favor. If not, testimony in opposition of the subject. Is there testimony in opposition of the subject? And then no rebuttal. We will close this hearing then at 5:02. Okay, we will then move on to our next public hearing. I'm also taking minutes tonight, so it's going to be a little bit slow. If you just bear with me here. Okay, then we will move on to the public hearing. This is for a rezoning of Bethany Home. Greg Golden, Plunkett Racich, Architects Agent. We have our roll call. Edelbeck, Keelan, Fair, Lutzy, Olson. And Brennan, would you like to proceed with the purpose of the hearing?
Sure. I'll start out this this presentation, and then if there's any follow-up from the architect or agent, we can have them addressed at that time. This is 2 separate public meetings. So the first one is for the rezone this evening. They are both in conjunction with Bethany Homes and their proposed project that you see in front of you. There will be a formal presentation during the special use permit. The reason for the rezone this evening is currently the property is zoned R1, which is residential single family. It permits a total structure height of 35 feet within that district. The staff has been working with the applicant for several months on the proposed project, and due to the nature of the use and the program facility that they are proposing on the site, it required a taller structure of the property. The project that is being proposed this evening is for a building that's going to be at the eave line. It's going to be 35 feet. However, due to the roof structure that is it's a hip roof structure to try to maintain the residential character within the area for the project, along with actually it is obscuring all the roof mechanicals and some of the other equipment that's on top of the roof. It required the project to be taller than 35 feet with a total height to the peak of 43 feet in height. In order to accommodate this building that is being proposed, a rezoned from R1 to R3 was required. The R3 zoning district, which is multifamily, does permit a total height structure of 45 feet. Within your packet, there is other residential multifamily development within the immediate vicinity across the street. There's some apartments and condos on the east side of Berlin Street, so this does conform to the city's comprehensive plan. It is not out of character, out of nature. There is residential single family surrounding that area, but there is also multifamily in the area, and staff felt that it was accommodating to rezone the property from R1 to R3 to permit the structure to be constructed. This is the first phase of the project. The Plan Commission during the regular Plan Commission meeting will need to take two separate action items because you cannot approve the special use without permitting the rezone to go through first. There was an error within the executive summary on the last sentence underneath the background. It says the eave height of 38 feet. I meant that is supposed to be 35 feet.
Okay, did you want to have anyone else talk further on the purpose of the hearing?
I'll look to anybody from Bethany Homes or their agent if I missed anything. Otherwise, we can open up the comments for and against.
Yeah. Okay. Then at this point, we'll ask for testimony in favor of the subject. We ask persons appearing to state their name and address for the record, and we will attempt to set a 3-minute limit if possible. Is there anyone here who would like to testify in favor of the subject? We have one already here, I think.
My name is Carol Elvery. I live at 33 Shadow Woods Lane. Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I do support both the zoning change for Bethany and their special use permit, and let me tell you why. Waupaca has many assets that are unique to a city of 6,000 people. Among the many are 3 of my favorites: the River Ridge Trail, which should probably not be a surprise, Winchester Academy, and Bethany Home. Bethany Home has a history of over 100 years of service to the residents of the Waupaca area. The last 60 years, they have served the area's elderly. And they have done this as a lone, not-for-profit nursing home in the city and have survived financially. That's pretty good. This project recognizes and responds to recent changes in elderly care. And I'm going to mention 2 changes that do not relate to the special use permit, but without the special use permit being approved, the 2 changes that I'm talking about won't work either. It's all a huge package of what they hope to accomplish for the community. The incidence of dementia is increasing in Waupaca as it is everywhere. In her 60s, a woman's estimated lifetime risk of Alzheimer's is 1 in 6. Twice as many women have Alzheimer's as men do. In addition, there are numerous other types of dementia. People with dementia are not sick in the early stages, but they need a somewhat restricted environment in which they will be safe. Safe to wander, stop here and there, pick up something, look at it, go on. They need caregivers who will remind them of hygiene and eating and engage them in appropriate activities. I love the changes in the memory unit that are incorporated into this project. It will be a safe environment with no doors leading directly outside to the neighborhood. Doors will lead to an inner courtyard so residents can go in and out at will and not get lost or hurt. The unit will be a continuous loop so the resident can wander to her heart's content. This is the only facility in Waupaca doing anything like it. For all those without dementia, there's the Wellness Center. Research has proven that elderly adults who are active stay healthy longer, and those specific programs that target muscle toning and bone strengthening are helpful in preventing falls. The Wellness Center will serve not only the 200-plus residents at Bethany, but also be open to the community, and the equipment is specifically designed for older folks. This is really the only place with that also. One of my neighbors said she had started an exercise program at the senior center, but there was never enough parking for her, and if she did have to find some, she had to walk too far to class. She decided to exercise at home. She and others like her will benefit from having a wellness center nearby. In summary, I've given 2 examples of why I think Bethany's project will continue their long history of service to Waupaca. If you want to give me 5 more minutes, I'd be happy to talk more. And I'll take questions then at the Planning Commission.
2:59, pretty good, Carol. Okay, is there anyone that else that would like to testify in favor of the subject? Please step up and give your name and address for the record.
My name is Jeff Haystrike, and I live on Lamplighter Lane here in Waupaca.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I don't think I'll take the entire 3 minutes, but just to expand a little bit on what Carol said briefly, I'm representing the Bethany Board tonight and would just like to say a couple of things about our project. What this project enables us to do is to continue to care for senior citizens in different and changing levels of care, and that's going to require the extra floor in our design. And part of the reason we're doing this, or well, the entire reason we're doing it, is that healthcare financing has changed the way things have been being reimbursed. So this is actually a practical matter here. This is a nonprofit organization, but it's going to enable us to continue our mission of looking after the seniors in our community. What this is going to enable us to do is sustain our growth. I mean, Bethany's been around for 100 years or so, and we wanted to continue to be around here. A lot of long-term care facilities have folded up their tent because they haven't adapted to the changing realities of healthcare. And I think Bethany has been a good community citizen. It's one of the essential elements of a community. Just like we want our manufacturing base, our school system, we have to be proud of what we do here in looking after our people. And I think we'll be able to expand our mission with this new facility. So just to conclude, I think to underscore our importance to the community, we employ 200 people or so. There will be local people working on this project, and so we hope you'd consider that when you consider the special use permit.
Thank you. Any other testimony in favor of?
Mr. Chairman, I do want to mention, for the record as well, staff did receive another phone call from a resident within the neighborhood. The name escapes me. I'll get it for the minutes, but he did speak in favor of both applications this evening. He lives in the neighborhood just north of the project.
Okay, testimony in favor of the subject? Anyone else here that would like to testify in favor of the subject? Again, in favor? If not, we will then go to testimony in opposition to the subject. If you would come up and give your name and address, and we'd ask you to hold your comments to 3 minutes.
My name is Laura Youngers. I live at 1210 Berlin Street. One house separates Bethany in my yard. Right in the corner of that huge building is where my house is. Now, I don't understand why they can't push this to the back or someplace else. They're taking up a huge amount of green space. They're going to be taking down big trees. We're going to lose our backyards. My property value is going to go in the tank. And this is the only thing that I own that's worth anything. And Bethany's going to come around and put this huge building there. I mean, more parking, more traffic. We've contacted the DNR because they're on the river, they're on the lake. And I appreciate the two that spoke in favor, but one doesn't own a single-family dwelling home. She might live in that area, and the other person lives in Covered Bridge. I don't think he wants a building in his yard either like this. When I bought my house, it was single-family dwelling, and that's the way it should stay. I don't know where these apartments are that the person in favor was talking about, but there's none on Berlin Street. It might be on E, but it's not on Berlin Street. It's on Evans Street, okay? My neighborhood is single-family dwelling, and that's the way I want it to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in testimony in opposition of the subject? Testimony in opposition?
Good evening, and thank you for listening to our comments. I have a petition.
If you could just give us your name and
Oh, yes.
address for the
Sorry.
record.
I'm Jane Legault. I live at 1218 Berlin Street, right on the property line of the proposed addition to Bethany.
Thank you.
Lori, of course, is my neighbor, and we have like thoughts on this, but I have a petition which has circulated in the neighborhood, and I have 15 people who are opposed to this zoning, and let me just read to you the summary. Property owners and taxpayers of R1 single-family zone and are opposed to rezoning for the following reasons: property devaluation, safety of residents due to increased traffic and additional population, impact of increase of water and sewer needs, noise, environmental pollution relating to construction. We, the undersigned, are concerned citizens who urge our leaders to act now to oppose the rezoning of property at 1226 Berlin Street from R1 single family to R3 as proposed by Bethany Home. A couple other things that have been brought to our attention is that if this construction goes through, that they're looking at, people have apparently approached people in the cul-de-sac area concerning rezoning or restructuring the road in the back so that there would be all the construction area, all the construction equipment, like the cranes and the bulldozers and that kind of thing, someplace to put those items, those construction materials, and that would be in the brought through the cul-de-sac. Also, that there's been some question about what would have to be done in terms of fire protection back there, that there'd have to be some sort of gate or something that would open up that area if there was a fire, and for the CBRF that is being proposed in that area. We had at one point in time, many years ago, been told that the green space or the R1, 2, or excuse me, the Berlin Street 1226 would continue to be green space, which if you look on the map that was distributed, the aerial map, there basically is no green space that will be left for smart planning, which is something that people are looking at in many communities. So those are our thoughts, and we have a number of people in the area who are very concerned with this kind of thing, the impact, traffic. We have a lot of traffic already in the area. We've also done some of our own surveying about the need, and there are many other facilities in the area who seem to have low census. They may not have the memory unit, but they have low census, and there are facilities available for people. We don't think that there necessarily is a need, because when surveying other nursing homes, other properties for people with different kinds of issues, aging issues, there are facilities available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone in testimony of opposition to the subject?
Good evening. My name is Jim Johnston. I live at 150 Shadow Lake Drive. My wife and I, Julie, live there. The top house would be kind of the top left of the green area there, and if you need me to scoot on over there and show you, I can show you. I've got kind of a mixed message. I believe that the community does need modern nursing home care. I think this will actually help the community with some provisions. Right now, the proposed expansion, as we were originally pitched, and it was a good briefing that we got. My wife and I went and took a look, and it looked like it would be the extreme northeast corner. Would actually come, it would be the RCOC, the back side of the expansion, would come within 15 feet of our house. There have been 2 planning resolutions over the years revolving around expansion of Bethany that actually provided for a green space. If you can see the green space as it is now on Shadow Lake Drive, it ran kind of the width of that far west lot to Berlin Street, and obviously it narrowed. The RCOC, the way it exists now, actually encroaches into that green space. That is the problem that I have with this current design. My wife and I did speak with Pauline Darling, the CEO of Bethany, here within the last couple of weeks. It appears there can be some modifications to the backside that actually takes some of that encroachment away, and I think they may be discussing that tonight. I guess I'm here in opposition just because of that one thing. I believe the existing planning resolutions have been watered down or possibly even deleted with the expansion in the back part of Bethany in the RCOC. Like the pioneers always said, distance makes for good neighbors. This narrows that distance down considerably, and I think the project as it is now, at least in the back part, as it abuts my property, needs to bring the Bethany expansion a little bit further to the south. And I'm sure there's some accommodation that could be made there. So, in summary, I think we need more modern facilities. I think Bethany needs to modernize its facilities just to remain competitive in their industry. But we as neighbors, we also have to cohabitate and coexist together. And the past planning resolutions have worked quite well as far as the green space in the buffer zone. And I would like to see that continued and not encroached to this severity.
Okay, thank you. Again, is there testimony in opposition to the subject? testimony in opposition?
My name is Victor Anthony from 134 Shadow Lake Drive, and I agree with pretty much the pros for this, and also I understand there are people that have concerns with proximity to property lines. One question that I have of this city that this is, the way I understand a rehab facility, is R3 the proper request for rezoning? Or, you know, this doesn't look to me like being a residential facility. I didn't understand it that way in the presentation that we heard. The second thing would be, we're concerned with the green space being taken away and the runoff from a much larger structure, and we're not exactly sure where this water is going to go. Presently, that runs between, what is it, 148 and 150 Shadow Lake Drive. There's a culvert underneath Shadow Lake Drive at that point. And I'm concerned about flooding the community park that we have in our neighborhood with, if there's not going to be some kind of a system to take that drainage away from all these buildings. And the other thing was brought up by Jim Johnson, my neighbor, and we sent a letter to the Plan Commission stating the two different codes that we have established previously between Bethany Home and the Shadow Lake Drive neighborhood, which I don't really need to go in, and that's just limiting the access from Shadow Lake Drive into Bethany Home. And that's my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other testimony in opposition to the subject? Again, testimony in opposition? If not, then we'll take rebuttal in favor of the project. Is there rebuttal in favor of the project? Again, rebuttal in favor? If not, is there rebuttal in opposition to the project? We'll take rebuttal in opposition to the project.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to address the comments during the Plan Commission meeting?
Yeah, not during the public hearing. Okay, then we'll call this hearing closed at 5:25. And we will move right on then to the public hearing special use permit. This is for Bethany Home, Greg Golden, Plunk and Rasich Architects Agent. Again, this is for the special use permit. We have Edelbeck, Keelan, Fair, Lutzi, Olson in attendance. And Brennan, would you like to give a short description of the purpose of the hearing?
I'll actually give that time to the architect and Bethany Homes to make their presentation for the entire project, and if there's anything, I'll fill in afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm Pauline Darling, the CEO from Bethany Home at 1226 Berlin Street. Since 1897, Bethany Home has been providing charity services to the residents of the Waupaca community on the property located at 1226 Berlin Street. Approximately 250 children were raised in the old orphanage over the first 56 years of the organization's life. In 1954, the children were placed in foster homes, and the house was made available for seniors that were living alone in the community. Over the next 60 years, the nursing home added beds and additions of both assisted living, independent living to continue to meet the community's needs. Today, Bethany is controlled by a local board at the direction of 32 member congregations in the community. We have received a 5-star rating from the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid for 3 years in a row. Bethany is the 6th largest employer in Waupaca, employing over 200 employees. We serve 325 residents annually and subsidize $732,000 annually for low-income residents. Our annual direct economic impact on the community is just over $16.5 million. Needless to say, we are very proud of our mission, our heritage, and the accomplishments by those who have served this nonprofit organization over the past 116 years. People, including all of us, want options. To survive, Bethany must keep up with changes in regulations, perspectives, diagnosis, and demographics. All across the country, options for seniors have expanded. Our current institutional design does not meet current life safety codes and is no longer acceptable to our new clientele. As people choose to age in place, nursing homes are growing smaller and less institutional, while other levels of care are increasing and services of the past are being redesigned to meet new expectations. We must address an increased growth in memory care and provide less restrictive options. We must also provide updated rehabilitation care for short-term stay to residents so they can rehabilitate close to home, family, and friends, and to provide wellness programs that are purposely designed to meet a variety of needs specific to the seniors. Our board of directors has spent 3 years in thoughtful discussion, research, and development to create a repositioning plan that will ensure that Bethany Home continues to responsibly meet the needs and expectations of many of our community's most frail citizens. We realize we have limited space. However, abandoning our property is not an option. We did consider a 2-campus option, but found it to be inefficient and unaffordable. The repositioning plan creates an organized and efficient layout that minimizes demolition on the campus and keeps residents of similar conditions and care levels in close proximity. This will enable us to minimize the effect of licensing requirements and staffing needs. And very quickly, the center board in the middle, if you look to the orange section, thank you. The base that we used to start our design, just to kind of give you the layout and how the layout ended up this way. There is a 1990s addition, our J-wing area. That actually does meet current nursing home code and was used as a starting point to design a replacement skilled nursing facility. By utilizing this section of the existing facility for 28 semi-private resident rooms, we will save substantial construction costs because it actually does meet today's licensing codes. Which is kind of how the 3-story ended up where it did, to keep all of our nursing home in that orange section. You can see the center blue section. That's the existing nursing home building that was built in 1960. It will have minor renovations to repurpose its 61 rooms to CBRF care. A secured unit will be designed to house 36 residents with cognitive needs, which can be expanded by 10 additional beds at any time that we need to. The CBRF will have a memory care garden in a secure area, activity rooms, quiet rooms, kitchen, and laundry areas for resident use, and several dining options. The RCAC, which is the green area, the back part of the green area, will be expanded with a 1-story structure housing 20 additional units. The dining area will be expanded and residents will order meals tableside from a restaurant-style menu. We are currently doing that in our nursing home, which is very unique to our facility and really across the state. Finally, a wellness center will be added to the campus that will be designed specifically for geriatric use. Residents from the campus, as well as the community, will have access to specialized programming and fitness equipment specifically designed for seniors. The Wellness Center will include a fitness room, aerobic studio, and presentation kitchen for nutritional programs. And that's the area that's just up in the front of the RCAC. And I'm going to turn it over to Erin.
Thank you, Pauline. My name is Aaron Cook with Pinnacle Engineering Group. We're out of Brookfield, Wisconsin, and we're the site civil engineer for the project. So Pauline gave a good overview of where the building placement is. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the other things that are going on the site at a high level. So we've got the building additions, the skilled care on the east, we've got the RCAC kind of going on the west and the wellness on the west. Let's talk a little bit about the parking. So there is a parking lot that is where the RCAC is right here, and we're going to be displacing those stalls. We think that the skilled nursing facility is going to be more parking intensive. In other words, there's going to be more people going in and out there, more employees, more visitors there. So what we've done is we've added more parking down here just south of the skilled nursing facility. We'll also be reconfiguring the parking on the main parcel, or I guess this would be south of the RCAC here, to be more efficient. So the net at the end of the day is we have the required minimum number of zoning or required minimum number of spaces to meet the zoning code, but we also set a few spaces aside just in case in the future there is a need for extra parking. We do have a few areas set aside for that as well. One of the things that's very important to this community and to this campus, when you go to the campus and you walk around, it's just beautiful. You have these big pine trees. It's very park-like. And for the residents there, we wanted to make sure that they have opportunity to experience that. And it was talked a little bit, before here as well. And so we wanted to make sure we have good pedestrian connectivity. There's some sidewalks out there already, but we're going to be adding a lot more. And I know it's a little hard to see on this, but basically there will be a sidewalk that will go all the way, and I'm shaking like crazy here, but it'll go all the way around the entire building. So there'll be a full loop that goes around there, so residents can go around the entire building. They'll also maintain the connectivity to the river through the trail that's here by the maintenance buildings. We will maintain the pedestrian connectivity to Shadow Lake Drive. And we will also have sidewalks, actually 2 sidewalks, that will go out to Berlin Street. So that was very important to keep that so that people can openly move around and about the campus and experience the campus. Landscaping, obviously we have some neighbors to the north there, and we want to be respectful about what we're doing along the north property line there. So the focus of the landscaping was really the north property line. The initial plan here is to do a fairly intense screening line along that north property line. We plan on keeping all of the existing trees that are along that north property line intact. So we are not cutting down any of the nice mature trees that are along that north property line. What we're proposing right now is a mix of coniferous and deciduous trees and shrubs. There has been some discussion between Pauline and some of the neighbors in the area, and it sounds like they might have a little bit different vision about what might want to happen there, and we're totally open to working with that. I have every confidence with our landscape architect that we'll find a solution in there that is going to be mutually beneficial, that's going to provide that screening. And we heard a little bit about how this this green space seems to be shrinking, and I think that green space that's left, we can really enhance that and really make that nice. We are putting in about 60, I think actually once the final count is done here with some of the comments we received, we'll probably close to 70 new trees on the property. The last thing I'll talk about is stormwater. We heard a little bit some concerns about that as well. Our goal here, we took a look and said, okay, where does our water go from the site? And we've got some water that goes over to Shadow Lake. A lot of the water goes directly to Crystal River, and those are important for the community and for the campus here. We want to preserve and protect those. We do not want to see water going in there that's going to be a detriment downstream. There's a lot of people downstream that if we were polluting that water, that would be a real crime. So we took a look at the plan, and with a little direction from the city engineer here, we're coming up with a plan that basically takes some rain gardens and bioretentions. And I don't want to get too technical here, but what those are is they're shallow depressions, okay? And we direct the water into them, and the water naturally infiltrates into the soil. We've got some great sandy soils here. And so what we want to do is we want to filter that water, pull all of the, contaminants, anything that's in a parking lot. We want that to stay in the rain garden, let that natural water flow through and not send much to the river or much to the lake at all. Maybe in a larger storm there's a little bit of overflow, but in general we're going to be keeping a lot of the water on site, and we think that's really a good thing to do. When we did this too, we kind of looked and said, well, the DNR code's got this minimum requirement, and in working with John a little bit, we actually came up with a plan that's way better. And I hate throwing numbers out there, but we're probably going to be really doing double, maybe even triple what the minimum is for a stormwater requirement around here. So I think this is something that, when all is said and done, we're really going to be able to hang our hats on. And this is going to be, something that we're proud of, that we've actually done something positive, done something better than what's out there now with the stormwater. So with that, I will turn it over to Larry.
Thanks, Aaron. My name is Larry Schneider with Plunkett Rasich Architects out of Milwaukee, Madison, and Sarasota. Our firm specializes in long-term care facilities all over the country. And we were engaged by Bethany Home to do a study first and foremost about how we're going to address their expansion needs. We looked at moving the facility to a different site altogether and vacating this site. We looked at having two campuses, one here and one outside of town, and we looked at multiple options on the site itself. And the solution that came through that you're looking at today was brought forward primarily because of its operational, financial feasibility, physical plant, that meets all the needs, that makes this an operational and financial and sustainable project for many years to come. As mentioned, the existing skilled nursing does not meet current life safety codes. And that's something that they are grandfathered in currently, but could not continue to do that in much further. So where there's a 7-foot corridor, for example, in the existing facility, the code minimum today would be an 8-foot corridor. One of the things that I think is important to point out is the population of the skilled nursing at this campus is actually being reduced in this plan. The current skilled nursing license bed count is 104 beds. We're reducing that to 82 beds in this new. That's a national trend. Doesn't mean it's eliminating the need for skilled nursing nationally, but as you can see, there's more levels of care that are being provided by Bethany Home, and this is what is intended to be executed here. The buildings themselves are again, this is the 28 bed. This is the footprint of the 3-story option. I apologize. The 3-story option is actually down below. We can raise that up and show maybe. Thank you, Pauline. The materials that are on the exterior of this building include a stone belt course along the lower section of the building. We have some actual samples here of the products. There's brick going up on the upper half to 2/3 of the building, and then there's a siding above that with an asphalt shingle roof above that section. So we tried to incorporate some abutments to create some interest between levels of height of the products to bring the scale of that building down, and actually the pitched roof really is there to help tie in with the neighborhood. The other portion of addition, so obviously this is that portion that we just discussed. There is a small addition that links two neighborhoods to the CBRF together. That's to create that meaningful wandering that was discussed before about a person that has dementia or a related disease. This provides meaningful wandering and is vital to the execution of that area. There is a small addition to the dining and then the residential care apartment complex 20 units that are one story here, and then the one-story wellness center that is imaged actually down below. Again, the RCAC and the wellness center will be a combination of brick, siding, and asphalt shingles. Thank you.
Okay, will that wrap up the project description then? Brendan, does that suffice? Yep. Okay, with the completion of the project description and purpose of the hearing, then we'll move to testimony in favor of the subject. Again, is there testimony in favor of the subject? Again, this is relating to the special use permit for the Bethany Home project. So is there anyone that would like to testify in favor of the subject? Again, testimony in favor of the subject. If not, we'll move to testimony in opposition of the subject. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. If you give your name and address, and if you hold your comments to 3 minutes, it'd be appreciated.
No problem on that. Patricia Recre, 3 Shadow Woods Lane. So I'm one of the residents of the independent living facility in the back of Bethany. My husband and I moved there in August, so we're new residents. But why we moved there is because life changes for older people. And we had a big farm, well, not a big, but we had a farm out in Scandinavia, and so have been residents of Waupaca County for a long time. When it came a time that we knew we had to move, the question was where, and we could see the writing on the wall, which was that we would need more help than independent living in another area would have given us. And moving to Bethany meant that we might be able to meet the needs that we were going to have as they appeared. My hope is that with the memory center that will be built, we hope, a particular need for our family will be met. You all know, I would guess, someone who's dealt with different levels of dementia, and you know how important it is to have adequate care and adequate help for caregivers. And my hope is that within the Bethany facility, if it's approved, that this would be available to us and to many other people in the community. I see a real need for that. We spent time at Crystal River, my husband and I, recently, and we know that that facility does not offer that kind of care. So at least it didn't offer it to the degree that we hoped it would. So thank you.
Okay, is there any other testimony in favor of the subject?
Carol Elby, 33 Shadow Woods Lane. You don't often get me without prepared notes, so good luck to all of us. But I will now speak to that 3-story building. The plan for it makes incredible sense, and I have been a rehab patient at Bethany. The care was great, that was all wonderful, but you're mixed in amongst all these other patients with differing needs and of differing levels of everything. So that even in rehab, in the rehabilitation in the therapy department, there were those kinds of challenges. So the way it's planned to have the nursing home with the private rooms in the new building, the 1J wing will still have double bed rooms. Believe me, if you've ever been in a private room versus a 2-bedroom, you will know that any facility that's moving to all private rooms is a great benefit to the families and to the patients. The 2nd floor will have the sickest of the nursing home patients because they won't be going in and out like the ones that would be on the 1st floor. And then the 3rd floor would be strictly rehabilitation, so that every level of care is more or less isolated in its own unit, which means you don't get next door to a patient that's confused and yelling and screaming half the night when you're a rehab patient. So some of those things that presently happen, and not through anybody's fault, but just the shortness of the facility. So I think the three-story building is really, I mean, it was a stroke of genius from the architect for given the physical limitations of the site.
Okay, thank you. Any other testimony in favor of the subject? Testimony in favor again? If not, then we'll take testimony in opposition of the subject for the special use permit. Anyone would like to give testimony in opposition of the subject?
I'd just like to say a few things about...
Just your name and address again.
Jane Legault, 1218 Berlin Street.
Thank you.
And I would like to say a few things in reference to the people who were not able to make this committee meeting. It was, you know, for those people who are still working at 5:05 and 5:10, it's pretty hard to make that. That's part of the reason that we put together and circulated a petition. And I would like to say that we have been given in the past many indications that we would keep the green space and that there would be parking. I can't believe that there's going to be enough parking. You said you had already 250-some people who work there. With all of the additions of this, I can't believe how many more parking spots you will have, which we're thinking that then there will be parking on Berlin Street, which is already an issue concerning traffic. We've had a number of accidents at that situation. We've had people who have jumped the curb and hit, you know, cars and in driveways. We've had people who had to be removed from with the jaws of life from an accident on the corner. We are very concerned about the traffic needs, about the impact on a single-family dwelling area. And yes, I'm sure there are needs, some needs regarding the memory care, but as far as the fact that there aren't enough beds and so forth in the Waupaca area, that just is not true. We've done our own research regarding this, and that is not true. Some people are, yes, leaving and going to Stevens Point and some other areas for maybe some of these cares, but some of it has to do with also the cost of the facilities in other small communities where it's less expensive and they can get the same kind of care in a different area. So I would like a copy of this petition, but I will give this to the Planning Commission, the petition, and the people who could not make it because of the time constraints regarding this time.
Thank you. Is there any additional opposition, testimony in opposition of the subject? Again, testimony in opposition of the subject? Yes, sir.
No, I was going to ask him a question.
It's just testimony, sir. If you'd like to give testimony.
In rebuttal to a statement that was just made.
You'll have your chance. Yes, sir. If you'd like to give testimony, if you give us your name and address in opposition to the subject.
My name is Jeff Schillinger. I live on 117 Shadow Lake Drive. I'm the second newest member of the street. I've been very impressed with Bethany, and I know a little bit about their history of what they've meant to the community, and I don't think anyone here really questions that because of the service they've done to the many people that they've served over 100 years. I guess my only concern is, being a resident, I'm one of the residents of the north, there's 4 of us that are adjacent. It's always nicer to ask someone rather than telling someone. And there are some things that I feel as a member of the community that we were told is going to happen, not asked any input. It was stated a little while ago that, I don't know if the architect or Ms. CEO visited the neighbors asking what kind of plants or trees should be planted. There's only 5 people on our side of the street, and I know for a fact 3 of the 5 have never been contacted. I would like to be contacted, or at least asked, since I'm adjacent to the property and one of the people affected. Again, I believe everything that Bethany is doing. It's a wonderful facility. My biggest concern, my family's biggest concern, is the 2-story building that's going to be on a very limited plot of land. And looking out there every night, my questions would be, what kind of lighting are they going to have? What kind of noises are going to be that is not there now? So if somebody can answer those questions for me, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there additional testimony in opposition to the subject? Again, testimony in opposition? If not, we'll move on to rebuttal in favor. Is there rebuttal in favor of the project? Just give us your name and address, sir.
My name is Gene Wasserberg, 30 Shadowwoods Lane. I happen to be the ombudsman for the Crystal River Nursing Home, and I'm quite familiar with the nursing homes in the area. We happen to be very fortunate. I meet quarterly with other people like myself representing the nursing homes in the northeastern section of the state. And Waupaca has a reputation of having the best that there are around. As a matter of fact, when I first started, I thought I couldn't handle it because I heard all these horrible stories by other ombudsmen of what was going on in their places. I said to the lady that ran the thing, I said, you know, Carol, I've got a business to run. I must be blind to what's going on. She said, no. You have quality places there in Waupaca. As far as the Crystal River is concerned, it's a smaller unit. They do the best they can with what they've got, but it is just head and shoulders above everything else that's around. As far as price is concerned, I heard something that in smaller communities the prices are less. Not the case at all. And in terms of where nursing homes are going today, long-term care is on the way out. The bulk of the business that these homes are doing is in rehab. And I know of no place in the state that are taking the steps that are being taken by our nursing home here at Bethany. They're head and shoulders again above everything else that's around. So I think we have to take that as a major, major point and make our decisions as to what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there additional rebuttal in favor of the project, or the, I'm sorry, the special use permit? Rebuttal in favor?
I hate to even call this a rebuttal. We did have a neighborhood meeting.
Just give, let's give you your name
Oh,
for
sorry,
the,
Pauline Darling, CEO at Bethany, 1226 Berlin Street.
thanks.
We did have a neighborhood meeting, and the people that have contacted me to discuss the greenery and things like that, we have had those conversations. I don't see you there. John.
Yeah, I talked to him at that meeting.
Did you?
And I told him that was my concern. I said, I'd like you to get back to us.
Okay. So we would like to hear about the ideas from the neighbors about what we should be putting on that line. So I would like to get a hold of you to do that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is the reduction in nursing home beds. What we're doing, and the beds are empty around, and it's going on all over the nation. Nursing home beds, the states and the nation is realizing how expensive it is for nursing home beds. And so we have a philosophy at Bethany, and it should be the philosophy everywhere, is that people should be in the least restrictive environment possible. So if you don't belong in a nursing home, you shouldn't be in a nursing home. And that's why we're reducing our nursing home beds. We have the best census in our area. Our market study showed that Bethany Home is at 98%, and on average, most nursing homes in the area are at more like a 70%. Says a lot good for us, but we also recognize that some of the people that are in our nursing home, if there was a CBRF available, wouldn't have to be in a nursing home. They could actually be in a lesser restrictive environment like a CBRF. And so that is one of the reasons why our plan drops our nursing home beds. When we started this endeavor about 3 years ago, we actually dropped our nursing home beds from 119 down to 104. So we've already dropped 15 beds. And with this plan going forward, we're going to actually be dropping another 20 beds. So we're going to be at 82 beds for nursing home, because people really do need to be in a lesser restrictive environment. They do not need to be, I always like to say, if I steal a candy bar, I don't need maximum security prison. And so that's why the consideration to drop and reduce the nursing home beds. And that's why you're seeing a reduction in the census in the other nursing homes also, is because there are too many beds in Waupaca. Our market study showed that our community, the Waupaca community, is overbedded by about 100 to 150 beds, nursing home beds in our community. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there additional rebuttal in favor of?
Hi, I'm Cindy Order. I'm on the Bethany board. We've been working for many years working on this project. I have a CBRF also. It's right on corner of Washington and Lake. And I also have the Green Fountain Inn on the corner of Main and Lake. 20 years ago, when we bought the property, we had a beautiful Hollies right across the street from us, and that was all torn down, and that was a little bit hard because it changed the beautiful historic area that we were in. Well, we believe that it was needed. The old facility just didn't have what the new regulations needed, and so we do need to change. And I don't believe that the value. I mean, I don't believe the value of our property has gone down because of Hollies, because it was constructed very well. There was a lot of green space that was taken away for parking, but I don't think it's really hindered our community or our neighborhood. My business has not really, I don't believe, has been hampered by that facility. So, and I know from having a CBRF that, and that I really think, I mean, I know that that's the direction that we need to go. So I'm hoping, we hope that we as a community and board members and people on the Bethany will work with the neighbors to do as much as we can to work with trees or green space or whatever we can. So just wanted to put in my 2 cents. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Additional rebuttal in favor of? Is there rebuttal? Additional rebuttal in favor of the special use permit? If not, we'll move to rebuttal in opposition. Is there rebuttal in opposition to this special use permit? Anybody like to give testimony, again, a rebuttal in opposition to this special use permit? Hearing none, we will close this hearing then at 6:01, and we'll go right into our Plan Commission meeting then.
John, or Mayor, we want to make sure that no one leaves because we haven't made a decision yet. So
What's that?
make sure no one's leaving. We haven't made a decision. The process here.
Oh, well, the mayor can explain that. Are you going to run the meeting?
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
As Brennan was saying, that the public hearings are the meetings to give the people that are concerned the opportunity to speak. The actual nuts and bolts of the meeting is when we start the City Planning Commission meeting, which is what we're going to do at this time, and that is when we will do the action items. We will probably limit the discussion, although we want to make sure that we get most of the questions answered that we can as we go through the meeting, but we will try to, as I said, limit the discussion and give the opportunity for the commissioners of the City Planning Commission a chance to voice what they believe or what they would like to at that time. So at this time then, I would like to start the City Planning Commission meeting. In attendance, we have Commissioners Keelan, Olson, Lutzy, Fair, John Edelbeck, and Mayor Brian Smith. You have an agenda in front of you with a number of handouts that were included in your packet.
So move for approval.
Second.
We need we have a motion by Fair, a second by Keelan, that we approve the agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Okay, under action items, our first action item then is the special use permit for Margaret Mayer, 215 Jefferson Street. Brennan.
Yes, again, the applicant is here this evening to open up a facility that is gauged more towards assisting and helping adults within the community, educational social instruction for developmentally and physically disabled adults. Again, the location is at 215 Jefferson Street. Because this is an existing building, there are minor modifications that are required for building code. The applicant has spoken with our department regarding not only the historical character of the building, but also what would be involved. There's minimal improvements that will be needed from the exterior end of it, handicap accessibility location, which will more than likely be on the side or in the rear of the property. But for the most part, the building is up to code right now. It is a historical structure, so it does fall underneath special exemptions from the building codes as well, which the applicant has gone over with John Luss, who is our building inspector. The conditions of approval in front of you, again, are just, maintain the local building codes, submission and approval of any type of signage needs to be done yet. And in speaking with the applicant and the property owner, Mr. Harold Stibbs, the Planning Commission several months ago approved a special use permit for the adjacent facility, which is selling used cars. That project has spilled over a little bit onto this property and is utilizing some of the parking lot there right now. It has been confirmed with the property owner and the applicant that they will jointly work out an agreement between the two property owners for access and parking of vehicles on the two properties, since they are owned and maintained by the same property owner. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions of Brennan or Margaret Meyer, is that right? Meyer.
I do have one issue I want to bring up. We do have a city ordinance that prohibits taverns from locating within X number of feet of churches or schools, and I'd like to know if this can in any way be classified as a school.
I will leave that up to Margaret to answer that question, but staff's review of the application, this does not constitute a school. It is more of, I'll utilize the words politely, some form of a daycare or social gathering space. So in staff's opinion, it is not classified as a school. It would not be in conjunction, it would not be, what's the word I'm looking for here, contrary to the city's code for taverns or liquor licenses. But I'll let Margaret address that question as well.
Please.
Do I state my name?
Yep.
Margaret Meyer, 215 Jefferson Street, Waupaca. No, it would not be considered a school. Basically what it is a community integration program activity center. So what we do is we try to get into the community as much as possible. What we'll do is we'll help our participants partner with some of the local businesses in the community, maybe get them working, volunteering, that sort of thing. When we're in-house, we might do activities like arts and crafts or things of that nature, but and maybe work on daily living skills and that sort of thing, but not a school, no.
As long as you're at the podium, a couple of questions that I have.
Yes.
You know, in the future, as you see yourself moving in and growing perhaps, what kind of a client load are you looking at, and what kind of a staffing are you thinking about?
Well, the goal here is actually to keep the numbers down.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
For the first year, our projected growth goal is 6 participants. 3 years is 10 participants. What's really important for us is to be able to offer our participants individualized care, understand what they like to do, and to be able to get them into the community. When numbers start to get too big, sometimes people get kind of lost in the crowd. So the highest number we will go to are 10 participants.
And what kind of staffing are you looking at?
It's a 1-to-4 ratio. 1 staff per 4 participants, depending on behaviors. There's times where a client may need a one-on-one staff. But all of our participants, when they come in, we form an ISP, which is an individual service plan. And there's goals and behavior reports and that sort of thing that we work out with Community Care or IRIS, whatever company that we're working with at that time to meet the goals for the participant on an individual level.
Are you required to be licensed?
We are not required to be licensed by the state of Wisconsin. A day service program is not. However, we are going to. Yes.
And again, Mayor, maybe you could remind everybody here that if we make a recommendation here, are we recommending to council on this
Yes.
particular?
We are.
So that goes for both of our special use permits. So just for everybody's knowledge here, we make a recommendation which will be taken up at the council. And if we were to recommend in favor for this particular project, when are you looking at perhaps being day one for you?
Well, this process has been, I was telling Brennan, it's been like from Z to A. It's like you're doing everything backwards. So I'm hoping our start goal will be 2015, hopefully March or April, I guess is what we're kind of looking at.
About 6 months.
Or 2014, I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah, March or April.
2015.
Sorry, 2015.
Yeah.
No, I'm confused. I'm confusing you too.
So a few months, it would be a few months before you...
March or April, correct. That is correct. We still have some hurdles to jump and some work to do, so, yes. Thank
Brendan,
you.
did you have any contact with any of the adjacent property owners that were notified for the public hearing? Or
No, we have not received any contacts from anybody. Everybody that was located within 250 feet of the property was notified of the special use permit and public hearing this evening.
And Margaret, do you have a program that you're working with already?
My experience is I ran a day service program in another community with 22 participants. I actually relocated to this community and realized that there wasn't anything exactly like this here. And I just kind of decided it was a good opportunity, and I have a passion for adults with disabilities, and I believe that everybody should have this type of support. And I feel the families should have this support, and I also feel like it's really great for the community too, because we're spending a lot of time in the community. We're coming into the coffee shops, we're coming into the movie theaters, so essentially we're giving back to the community as well, because that's the basis of our program is community integration. So.
Well, if you could solve the Baker Mead murder, as long as you're in that bank, that would help us.
I'm gonna, that I don't know if I could do.
Anything else?
All right.
Anything else that,
Ready for a motion?
yes, we are.
Okay. I'd make a motion that we accept the special use permit for Margaret Mayer for her in residence for disability at 215 Jefferson Street.
Do you want to include the conditions that staff?
Conditions that staff has already proposed would be part of my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Fair, a second by Lutzy, that we recommend to council this special use permit for Margaret Mayer at 215 Jefferson Street with the staff recommendations. And you have discussed this before I got here, the recommendations?
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
And just for the Plan Commission and applicant, this will be going to the City Council on Tuesday, November 18th for consideration. November 18th.
So
Correct.
next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Good luck. Next, we have the rezoning for the Bethany home. This is, we have, on our agenda here, we have Greg R. Golden, an architect that's representing them as the agent.
Mayor Smith, I spoke with John this afternoon because we were unsure whether or not you'd be here for the Plan Commission meeting. I think it's in the best interest of the Plan Commission that we take both of these applications concurrently for discussion purposes at this time. However, there will need to be two separate motions, but because both applications are tied together with the submittal of the special use permit, I would recommend from a staffing level perspective that we take concurrently both applications right now for discussion purposes and questioning. And then when we actually do the individual motions, they should be individual.
Okay.
Brian, perhaps you could remind everybody about the rezoning part of this, what the procedure would be on that.
Yes,
Or Brennan.
Brennan
Brennan,
can.
maybe you could remind everybody the rezoning aspect of this particular.
Okay, sure. All right, so going back to the rezoning application, the property is currently zoned R1, which is residential single family. In order to permit the construction of the 3-story facility, the skilled nursing facility that's closest to Berlin Street, the applicant was required to rezone the property from R1 to R3. The rezoning to R3, yes, it is multifamily, but the main purpose of the rezoning to R3 is to permit the taller structure, which is a maximum height of 45 feet within the R3 district. There was a question that was brought up earlier this evening about R1 and R3. They're both residential. In these particular uses, there are certain zoning codes permit a certain type of use. R1 would allow single family. However, there are special use permits, which the applicant has also submitted for, that permits additional uses to occur on that type of property with special conditions and everything else. But you still need the underlying zoning district. So the underlying zoning district for this property would be rezoned from R1 to R3. Again, the main purpose of the rezone is to allow for the taller structure to occur and be constructed on the property.
And if the, after this evening's meeting, that rezoning petition would go where and how long would that take?
The rezoning petition, very similar to a special use permit, would have to go to the city council for final approval. Depending on the recommendation, whether or not there is one this evening, it would be heard at the earliest November 18th. But again, that is dependent on what recommendation comes out of the Plan Commission this evening. You have three options. For both of them, you have approval, denial, or you can table it if you want additional time for consideration.
Okay, so Brennan, do you have some discussion besides what you guys talked about in the public hearing before we?
Yeah, I mean, I can go through some of the comments that I have written down that was addressed, whether it's during the rezone or special use permit, if that is what we'd like to do. So I have spoke of the R1 versus R3 zoning district again. It is mainly for the height of the structure. Within the R1 district, you're allowed a maximum height of 35 feet. This building right now at the eave height would be 35 feet. However,
I'm sorry, could you point to the eave height as Brennan's describing that? I think that would be helpful. Or I can grab it here too. Oh,
right here.
Yeah, also,
Well,
just
we
a
also-
reminder,
I don't want-
there's two chairs up here for anybody that wants
Yeah,
to see
we
better.
also want the Plan Commission to be able to see it, so if you want to see it, you might want to go over to this side of the room. So the eve height is. There you go. We're tape recording it, so it'll be helpful.
The eve height,
That's it.
thank you. The eve height is on the edge of the soffit of the building. So right now, as it's calculated in the planning, I think there's a mean or an average height of the building that averages to just under 39 feet. Is that clear? So the eve typically is right at this point right here.
So the eve height is at 35 feet, and that is the regulation for R1. However,
that is the maximum height you could have any type of structure within the R1 district. That is
right.
correct.
However, there is a roof structure above that that is blocking
The mechanical.
that then takes it outside of the R1 regulation.
Correct. Again, as we worked with with the applicant for this project, we recommended and again, the architect actually proposed it. They proposed the hip roof that's on the building right now. Again, it serves two purposes. One, it's serving the purpose of trying to match into the existing residential character that is within the area of the single-family homes. And I did make a mistake earlier. The multifamily units are off of Evans Street, not off of Berlin Street, but they're still within the general vicinity of this rezone application. And the second purpose of this, of the hip roof, is to conceal the roof mechanicals and everything else that goes to service this project. The applicant could come forward with a flat roof building, but then the neighborhood and everybody else within the surrounding area would see all the roof mechanicals and everything else that services that building. From staff's perspective, it was not, they did not feel that that would have met the intent of the residential area, and felt that the hip roof structure was a great compromise that the architect proposed, and we are recommending that structure. Again, the city's zoning code has, I'll say, obscure or a weird rule in there about the average. The architect did mention, there's an average height of 39 feet. General common or general planning sense, you look at the peak of the roof. The peak of the roof is at 43 feet, so it would meet the R3 zoning district requirement for the height. Another issue that was brought up, and I'm going to go through a list here, so I apologize if I jump back and forth a little bit between the special use and the rezone. That's the main reason for the rezone. When we get into the special use permit, there was a couple of comments and concerns that were brought up regarding some resolutions that were adopted in the past by the city council. That is true. Within your packet, there was two resolutions, one that was adopted in 1987 and one resolution that was adopted, I believe, in 1992, if I am correct. One was in 1981, I apologize, and the other one was in 1987. The green area that's on the northwest portion of the campus, does the architect still have can you show the green space? Back in 1981 and 1987, Bethany Homes originally had proposed putting another condo or duplex unit on that property, but as the applicant went through the planning process, as we are doing this evening, it was adopted by the council that unit actually be eliminated and maintain a green space for the property. It didn't give any parameters as to how large or how big that buffer had to be, but it just meant that there was a condition put on by the resolution that no building could ever be constructed there, or duplex units. The proposed structure that for the RCAC, or the additional 20 units that are being proposed, the main encroachment on that area is the emergency access drive, which I'll get into. The building that's being proposed, the additional 20 units, I believe, have a minimal encroachment on that area, so I don't feel that it interferes or it goes against the intent of the original resolutions that were passed in 81 and 1987, or maintaining that vegetated buffer. I am sensitive to the neighbors and the comments. I have heard several comments as we've gone through this process. And with the additional landscaping that we are proposing for that corner, we feel that it's a compromise. Again, the building has a very minimal encroachment into that buffer area, and we're actually enhancing the landscaping that's already there to begin with. The emergency access drive that actually encroaches into that area, it's a twofold situation. One, it does encroach into the area, as I mentioned, but it's just the paved surface area, and we're enhancing the landscaping. However, we are requesting as staff, and this is coming from the fire chief and all emergency services, that there is a secondary access provided off of Shadow Lake Drive for emergency services only. Within the resolutions that are attached within your application, it identified that Bethany Homes would never request an access point for their property. Bethany Homes is not requesting it. This is being required and mandated by police and fire and EMS service. Staff agrees with the request. What is going to occur, what is being proposed, that is going to be a locked gate at the end of Shadow Lake Drive at the access point that will only be accessed by emergency vehicles. The only individuals that will have the keys would be emergency vehicles. No one in the complex or anybody else would be able to utilize that access point. Secondarily, I think it would be irresponsible by the Plan Commission and the city not to require this access point to begin with. Servicing this large of a campus that's over 25, almost 30 acres with one access point off of Berlin Street puts this entire complex at risk, in my opinion, especially with the duplexes that are further west of the property. So again, I agree with the recommendation and by our police, fire, and emergency services to request that there is a secondary access point for emergency vehicle access. Within the special use permit, I did identify some of the key issues, the green space requirements. Right now, the property has about 40% green space on the property without the built-in additions that are being proposed. By the additions that are being proposed, the 3-story facility along with the additional 20 units actually decreases the landscaping requirement down to 35. 35% would actually meet the R1 zone and district requirements. That's how much green space is required. However, by rezoning the property to from R1 to R3, R3 actually requires a minimum 50% green space for the property. With the building additions that are being proposed, we will not be meeting that requirement. However, we have and worked with the landscape architect and the engineers to add above and beyond green space requirements, the rain gardens, the bioswales. At the end of the day, those types of facilities not only enhance the overall general landscape of the property, but also does minimize the use of our city utilities at the end of the day and the water that's actually going into our city utilities. So I think it's a win-win situation, not only for the I'll say the city's utilities, but also for the campus. It's a therapeutic type of landscaping that's going in there as well, so I think it will help with all the different types of skilled care that is being provided by Bethany Homes. I think it's an amenity that's an attraction, and it's a compromise that I think is suitable for not meeting the 50% landscaping requirements. The proposed addition, 3-story facility for the skilled nursing, is not encroaching any closer than what the existing facility is to any neighbors on the north-hand side. Again, I am sensitive to the adjacent neighbors that are on the north side and along Berlin Street. I have done countless research over the years and have still not found a study that says that this type of facility actually detracts property values at the end of the day. I feel that this is actually an improvement and an amendment to the neighborhood and the community. You have a long-term sustainable neighbor that's there. This facility is not going to go anywhere. It's a long-standing neighborhood, and I feel that's actually an added benefit to the neighborhood and the community.
I'm sorry, could I ask you a question? Sorry
Sure.
to interrupt you, but since you brought it up, the proposed buildings that are being shown here, the new construction, did they meet the R3's setback requirements, both front yard and side yard?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So again, the buildings do meet the minimum setbacks off of Berlin
For
Street.
the rezoned R3
and R3. That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
There was an issue that was brought up about lighting on the property. There is a lighting plan that is within your packet. Also, the site plan or special use requirements identify that no light can actually shine off on the properties. Any proposed lights that are on the parking lot or on the building shall provide cutoff provisions that actually direct the light down so it does not spew into the neighboring property. So that is a condition to minimize any light pollution outside of the property boundaries. As for the noise, I would have to leave that up to Bethany and their representatives to address any type of additional noise concerns that may or may not occur on the property based upon the new reformat or reconfiguration of skilled care that's on the property. But I don't believe there would be any additional noise increase because of the addition of the property. There are some additional sidewalks that are being requested by staff, not only for again, for the campus, but also for emergency services. There are some rear exit doors that are for the stairwell and everything else on the backside. And speaking with the fire chief, he would like to have some additional sidewalks, so there's some additional access points for being able to, provide wheelchairs or stretchers to get people out onto the sidewalk if there was a need for that. And as for the parking and the parking study, this was an issue that John and I spoke with the applicant on an extensive basis, because we too identified or felt that there was potentially a deficiency in some of the parking that was out there. The proposed RCAC units does take out a portion of the parking that is on site right now. However, with the reconfiguration of the parking lots, we feel the additional parking that is being proposed by the three-story addition actually enhances the overall property. It provides parking immediately where it's needed. The parking that was in the back where the proposed RCAC units was very limited use. I've been out there on a couple of occasions, and I think that was originally meant for staff parking, but a lot of the staff actually parks in the main parking lot out front. They are meeting the minimum requirements for parking stalls, which is 141. That's what they're proposing. There are some areas reserved potentially for future expansion if there was a need for additional parking on the site. The engineer did also do a parking study for the actual project and looked at it on several days out there. And actually, there's more parking out there than was actually needed on the days that they were out there. So I think from a staff level perspective, we feel comfortable with the amount of parking that's being proposed out there. It will service the needs not only of the staff, but any of the residents that are out there. Again, the condos and the duplexes are really the only ones that have cars out there, and not all 200 staff members are there at one time. There's shift changes and everything else that occur, and we feel comfortable along those lines. I believe, other than the comments and the requirements that I put in the special use permits, I believe from what I heard thus far from everybody that made comments, I hopefully addressed some of the questions and concerns that were brought up. Are there any, I guess I'll look at the Plan Commission first, are there any questions that you guys may have?
Have the neighbors all seen the landscape plan? Does that have concerns about?
There was an open house that was conducted at the end of September, which to Bethany's credit, they held an open house. Everybody that was notified this evening for the rezone and special use permit. State statutes require the city only needs to notify everybody within 250 feet. We provided that list to Bethany a month in advance so that they could get invitations out to all the neighbors in the neighborhoods regarding their open house. They had one on site in September. At that time, they were purview to the landscape requirements. I don't believe from that meeting to now that the landscape plan has really changed. I believe there's been, from comments that John and I have spoken with the applicant and engineer, the landscaping has actually been improved, especially on the north side. Again, we're very sensitive to the neighborhood to the north and feel that through this process we've actually enhanced that landscape buffer. That was one of the requirements originally back in 1987. We've actually enhanced that further. So they have at least seen draft 1, if not draft 2. And anybody that's contacted Pauline over at Bethany Homes, I believe, has seen any modifications to the landscape plan.
Any other commissioners that have some comments?
Brendan, you talk about being in contact and working with the people that are to the north. What about the people that are along Berlin Street? How much is that going to change the green space between their houses and Bethany?
I mean, the green space that's along Berlin Street right now, I mean, a portion of it is going to be gone. I mean, there's going to be a 3-story building there. But there have been enhancements made with additional vegetated and coniferous trees along that north property boundary to minimize the visual presence of that building on that green space. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, it's out there right now. I am not purview to any previous comments that have been made, may have been made, or anything else regarding that green space. From a staff level perspective and from a special use permit process in the past, There has never been any recommendation or resolution passed by the city council or plan commission that required that the current green space be maintained green space. So I'm not really sure where those comments may or may not have come from. But I feel that in working with everybody in this project thus far, that between the architect and the building design is taken into consideration and being sensitive to the neighbors to the north and along Berlin Street.
Any other questions? Brendan, I have a couple. Let's go back, when you talked about the green space and the, if it is rezoned to R3, that our zoning requirements require that there's a minimum of 50% open space, and that they're not going to meet that.
Correct.
What, from a commission level, how does that affect our decision right now? I mean, it says it has to be a minimum of 50%.
Right.
Okay, so how do we justify going forward? You gave us a couple of ideas of what they're doing because they're not at 50%, but our zoning regulations say it has to be 50%. So explain that to me, will you?
Through the special use permit, the plan commission does have opportunities to waive from those requirements if it's in the best interest of the project and the plan commission agrees to it at the end of the day. Quite frankly, can the applicant actually meet the 50% requirement? Yes, they can. However, that would create some very unique property boundaries, and the area that would have to be incorporated into the property boundary in order to maintain that, it is undevelopable. It's pretty much land that's along Crystal River. So it was in staff's decision that we work with the applicant to enhance the green space that was still on the current property boundaries by including the additional bioswales, the retention ponds, the rain gardens. Those are above and beyond enhancements that the architect and the applicant don't have to do, but they are putting those types of amenities in place in lieu of meeting that 50% green space. Again, can they do it? Yes, they can. And however, it would create irregular boundaries. Yes, the boundaries right now are irregular, but it would enhance those irregular boundaries, and it also does take a portion of the property that does pay pilot fees, payment in lieu of taxes, off of the tax roll because of the switch in property boundaries.
Say that again. Say that last statement again.
Currently, Bethany Homes pays a pilot fees on the condo or duplex units that are on their property. That is a separate entity, but it's still maintained by Pauline and her staff over there. Those condo units do pay a pilot fee, payment in lieu of taxes, for that portion of the property. If we were to change the boundaries for the Bethany Homes property, you would actually be taking a portion of that land, which again, in staff's opinion, is undevelopable because it's either floodplain or it's the Crystal River, and taking a portion of that, which they do pay some pilot fees on right now, off of the tax rolls, and it gets added to Bethany Homes that is tax exempt. How much of a change are we speaking of? Probably minimal. But again, that's still an issue that has to be addressed. Within my special use permit, there is also, we do bring up the pilot fees as well. Staff has started those discussions with the applicant regarding, because of the improvements that are going on the site, increasing their pilot fees. Before, and the condition that's within that special use permit is Bethany Homes cannot get a building permit until a new agreement is in place that is approved by the city council for the pilot fees. Because this is going to be additional increase on our emergency services, we felt that it was needed, and the resolutions that are within your packet requires the city on a year-by-year basis to look at those pilot fees and renegotiate when needed. So we felt with the additions that are going to be proposed and the additional units that are being potentially constructed on the project, it was time that the city renegotiate those pilot fees for the entire campus. Those negotiations have started. but they have not concluded, and there has not been any proposed amendment to those fees brought forward to the city council yet.
So what you're saying with the pilot fees is, and hopefully everybody again understands what pilot fees are. I mean, we have a nonprofit organization here that doesn't pay property taxes, but they do use our services, fire, police, and so on.
EMS.
And so they had agreed to pay a fee in lieu of property taxes on that. What we're saying here is that there'll be some increased stress on those services, so we believe as a city that there should be additional pilot fees on that. And that will be part of the stipulation here, and that would have to come in front of council first before, I'm asking more than I'm telling.
Yep.
I'm asking, it would have to come in front of council first before a building permit could actually be signed.
That is correct. It is our understanding that any construction on site would not start until spring of next year. March, April, May, depends on how cold of a winter, warm of a winter we have this year. So we anticipate that we would have a new agreement brought forward to the council before that they would actually start construction next spring.
Okay, so you don't, although you don't make that part of the pilot fee as part of your recommendation in here, you do stipulate it right above the recommendations that no building permit would be given until there's an agreement on the pilot fees.
Correct.
You feel comfortable with that?
But Your Honor, we as the planning commission though wouldn't be involved in that process or those negotiations. So from our perspective, whatever we recommend, that's above and beyond.
Yeah, it's just one of the stipulations
Yeah.
that has to be done
But we don't
before
have any
it
control over
happens. You do not, yeah, we do not. Yeah. Exactly. Alan,
How much do they miss the mark on the 50%?
With the proposed addition, they hit the mark at 35%. So they meet the R1, but they do not meet the R3 zoning district. And when we took into consideration, because of needing to rezone from R1 to R3, there's a substantial change in, the R1 to R3 requirements for open space. Again, because of the special use permit, the Plan Commission does have the purview to relax or minimize some of the requirements for that project. So we felt making the enhancements that with the additional landscaping along the northern property boundary and the enhancements with the rain gardens and bioswales, we felt that was a good gesture and was made, or at least met the intent of the open space requirements. As an entire campus, and we had this study done by the engineer, the entire campus is actually over 60% open space, even with the built-in addition at the end of the day. And when I say entire campus, I say the duplex units and what you're seeing proposed this evening. So if you're looking at the entire 25 to 30 acres, over 60% of the site is landscape or open space requirement. It just so happens because of the irregular property boundaries and everything else, the specific area that we are speaking of this evening only meets the requirement of 35%.
so let's just go along with that 50% for one more question on that. Do we have precedent for that in the city where we have looked at the green space and found other ways to make it look better without it being the 50% or even the 35% if it was an R1? Just that of. I know, right. Brennan, you've only been here for a year, but yeah.
I'll say it on two sides of it. To my knowledge, within the city of Waupaca, no. In my professional experience of working as a city planner, I have utilized this method in other cases for other developments, not specifically within the city of Waupaca, but previous applications that I reviewed over time in my professional career. I have used, whether it's a special use permit or whether it's a conditional use permit, I have utilized that methodology for minimizing or relaxing requirements when an architect or engineer applicant goes above and beyond what the minimum requirements are, in my opinion, for other areas. Again, technically they're only required to have grass out there. I mean, by the letter of the law, they're only required to have grass. However, they have significantly enhanced the northern property boundary, along with adding, as Aaron Cook said, for Pinnacle Engineering, over 70 new trees on this property, in addition to the rain gardens, the bioswales, and everything else that's being proposed. That's above and beyond. And I have utilized that methodology in the past for other projects, yes. So it's not uncommon in the planning world to do that.
Eric.
As for the people in opposition, I'm wondering, short of stopping this project, what would appease you? What are you looking for? It sounds like they've made great efforts in the landscaping on the northern boundary. Not so sure about the people on Berlin, but I guess, are you looking to have this completely stopped, or are you looking for something else? I'm wondering what you're after. What would appease you?
Hold on a second. If you are going to talk, and this is a little bit unusual, you do need to step up to the podium and just give your name and address for the record again.
Are you okay with?
Because we are, yeah, I'm fine with that. I think, I like your question. I think it's a good question. So, yes, Lori.
Laura Youngers, 1210 Berlin. Not totally against the project. We understand, you know, people kept telling us constantly about the need for the special care. We get that. We understand that. We have aging parents ourselves. We understand that. My thing is, on Berlin, they've done a lot along Shadow Lake to appease people there. But those of us in Berlin, you know, and they had that meeting, and I did go to the meeting, even though I never received an invitation. There was 4 of us that didn't. She sent me on another one, which I got 5 days after the meeting because the post office ate it. I kept that at home. But they've really showed us nothing to appease us on Berlin Street. You know, they're going to be right next to Jane and Doug's house. I'm right next to them. We're going to have this huge 3-story structure looming in our backyards. They said nothing to us about helping us out. No.
Hold on a second here. The only person that can speak are people that are in front of microphones, and the main, first of all, it's to keep us organized, and
Right.
second of all, it's because we have this on TV and we want to make sure that the audience gets the ability to listen to this too.
Anyway, that's my beef with this whole thing.
So then my question is, what would appease you? What are you looking for then?
I want more boundary between our property line and Bethany. It is a beautiful campus, and it was so nice when they put that patio out there and all of that. And that would appease me, because they gave us some more of a cushion instead of having it right there.
Thank you.
Hold on, yep. Are you finished, Lori? Yes? Are you
I'm
finished?
done. Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Doug Wilkie, 1218 Berlin Street. I think the thing that really kind of irks us is we had no idea. We talked to people on the directors or board of directors for Bethany. We knew that they had been surveying for a good 6 months. I called up Dick Bidwell 3 times, left a voicemail. I said, would you please give me a call back? I'd like to know what's going on. Never called me. And I think the other thing is, all of a sudden, you're going to have this 3-story monstrosity facing Berlin Street, only about 40 feet off from the curb. I mean, what does that do to the overall image of what's supposed to be a residential area? And then you have Bethany running a restaurant. They pay no property taxes. We talked to Julie Kovorski at the Crystal Lounge, and she was just like, you're kidding me. And we're like, yeah, all you can eat Friday night fish. Hey, I'm advertising for you right now. Bet you should be glad. All you can eat fish, $7. And she was like, you're kidding me. I told Mr. Klismet out at the truck stop, I said, what do you think about having a Friday night fish fry for $7 when you look at all the property taxes you pay, and they don't pay any? Oh, they pay some for fire and snow removal and stuff like that. And he was like, you're kidding me. And I go, no, here's the advertisement. They're sending it out in their little flyers. A couple years ago, a maple tree limb fell on my wife's car. We called Pauline up to see if, they could do something to pay for the damage. Why don't you just run it through your insurance company? We went to their umbrella policy or to their insurance company. I sent them many pictures of the damage it did to the car, and the guy from the insurance company calls back and says, you guys can pick up the you guys can pick up the deductible yourself. That's an act of God. Well, I'm going to ask you something. How many more acts of God are going to occur on the Bethany property before somebody could get killed or injured really badly? Because really, all I've been fed over the last 24 years I've been living next to him is lies. From the time Parker was there till now. I can count on one hand how many times they've really told the truth or reached out as neighbors to me or to Lori and Mike and others. But I'm just saying, that's, I guess, our beef. I'm not saying that we don't need it. I think that they should do some modifications so that you don't have this huge 3-story structure just facing everybody that comes in on County Trunk E, and they're like, oh, wow, look at this thing. Oh, and then there's some houses next to it. Well, that's nice. But I guess, it's up to you guys. It's on your conscience, not mine.
Anybody else that would like to address Commissioner Olson's question?
To also talk, Jane Legault, 1218 Berlin Street. There was some discussion about what we've been told about any buffer, any landscaping. We actually were not privy to any of that. I mean, yes, we saw a little bit of this when we attended the meeting, but as far as contacting us that we're right there on the property line, as well as Lori and Mike and any of the people behind us, we have not been told anything about how many trees, what kind of thing. We were told a little bit about something they called a butterfly garden. To me, it was a holding area for water. To me, the thing I think about that, when I see that, is the same kind of drainage kind of stuff that goes on like by the mill pond, by the Crystal River. If that's what the kind of thing is going to happen there, it's just going to breed mosquitoes. I mean, we've not been told anything about that. So if that's, that's some of the discussion that has to be. And I agree that a 3-story building is just a real blight on the rest of the neighborhood. It doesn't keep the structure of the neighborhood at all. I mean, it's a huge building. It's like an industrial kind of thing going on. Yes, maybe they need some of these kinds of facilities, but I don't think it should be built in that manner. And yes, we have been told lies over the years. We were told by Mr. Parker that that green space facing Berlin Street would never, ever be built on. No, there was no resolution, so, I mean, it was what it was, so, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to address Councilman and Alderman Olson's?
Just a short comment. I'm Jeff Schillinger, 117 Shadow Lake. I was at the meeting, the open house meeting, and the map that was shown to us at the meeting didn't have our property on it. It just had, these are the neighbors to the north, and we're going to make some trees. Are you aware that that's what was said? And so we did not have any information about what trees, how many trees, just that there'll be some trees between your property and our property. But again, the map did not even show our specific house location, so we kind of guessed at it. And they said at the next meeting, they'll be a little more specific of And I said, okay, but there was no next, this is our next meeting. So I guess in restating what I said before, it's not that, because I love Bethany. It's a very large project for a short space, and the only people, and I guess you already heard the zeal of the neighbors. There's only 8 of us that are surrounding that area. So anyone on another side of town or on another street are not going to get the full effect that we get, because we live and we'll see it every hour of the day. So that's the one thing. The other thing is being asked to help support the project rather than being told this is what's going to happen. And again, there's only 5 people in that area to the north. There's only 5 properties, and 3 of the 5, possibly 4, had not been contacted after that first meeting. So we knew nothing about anything until we came here tonight. So as much information as you can give neighbors, again, when there's only 5 of us, I would think if you're going to schmooze anyone, that's who you schmooze. Thanks.
My name is, excuse me, Dick Bidwell, 126 Shadow Lake Drive. Correct me if I'm wrong. If the project put in a flat roof, it would not need to change the zoning, and this would be a moot point. Am I correct? It could stay a R1 because it would meet the proper height requirement, and then you would see all of the air conditioning and the other units, similar to what I believe you did at Quick Trip when they said, well, we'll take away the pitched roof and you can look at the air conditioning units, and the city decided it was better to look at a pitched roof than it was to look at electronic. I just asked, if it were a flat roof at the eve line, it would not need to change the zoning, and this would be a moot point? That's the question.
Sorry, what would be a moot point? The hearing here you're talking about?
Well, that we would not have to change to the zoning.
And we would have to have this hearing and so forth.
And we could just go ahead and do the project.
Well, Brennan can answer.
It's a 2-part question. You are correct in the sense that if you were to take off the pitch roof, you would be seeing all the mechanicals, everything on the top of the roof. Would that meet the current R1 zoning? Yes. But Bethany Homes would still need to submit for a special use permit for the operation of the skilled nursing facility on the property. So you would still have a public hearing in that sense. Again, we're here for 2 reasons. One, because of the rezoning, because of the pitch roof and the building height. And the second reason is to allow for the actual use to occur on the property. This is pretty much an expansion of their existing special use permit that's on the property. Again, because of the proposed use, it required that Bethany gets a special use permit. And I'm glad that the gentleman did bring up that example. Again, going back to the R1 zoning district, technically, I mean, you're allowed a 35-foot structure. I've seen 3-story modernistic homes that are 35 feet tall. They have flat roof. That could be next to that property as well, next to the property owners that are on Berlin Street. Again, I'm sensitive to that at the end of the day, but I'm just, putting it out to the Planning Commission and to the public that there could be a single-story home on that property at 35 feet tall. And it could still be located closer to the property line than what it actually is right now. Again, with the plan, they're not going any closer than what the existing building is right now. The average, I believe, is 15 or 16 feet off the property line on the north side of the property. And we had this discussion with the architect, and I feel that, and confident in saying that the building additions and the bump outs, the articulation that they have proposed on the building, the back side of the building, as you can see, actually there's an indent. There's actually kind of like 2 different segments. I believe that minimizes the impact on the northern property boundaries as well when it looks at, when people say the monstrosity of the structure. they have taken that into consideration. They have broken up the building to not make it appear like a 3-story industrial building on the property. And within my notes and my recommendation, I've actually asked that they increase some of the bump outs or additional architectural treatment on the building to continue that building separation so it doesn't look as large on the site that is, what you're seeing right now. So I feel that the improvements and the existing architectural treatments and the bump outs and the building design in general that has already taken place and proposed that you see in front of you this evening, and my additional requirements of try to enhance some of those bump outs and make some more improvements on the architectural materials, I feel meet or at least would minimize some of the discomfort that some of the neighbors along Berlin Street have. If I'm correct, the 2 property owners that are here this evening are directly north. I have not heard from anybody across the street along Berlin Street. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I feel, again, there is landscaping on the northern property boundary that does separate the 3-story building from the adjacent residential structure to the north, and the building design does take that into consideration, how it would look for people looking out their backyard. Again, I do want to reemphasize that you could have a single-story home that's 35 feet that would have the same appearance on the property, whether it's a multifamily or multi-unit building of this nature or a single-family building. You could still have a 35-foot structure on that property with the flat roof.
If we were to not approve the R3 zoning, not recommend it to council, but approve the special use permit, now the architect has to do something else. Is that correct?
You couldn't actually approve the special use permit. The rezone petition has to be approved first, and then the special use permit, because what's being proposed this evening is a building that has a peak height of 43 feet in average, so you would actually have to either table it or deny the special use permit. But again, you have to approve, if you were to proceed forward with what's being proposed this evening, you need to approve the rezone first and then the special use permit. Let me rephrase. You need to make a recommendation to the city council for approval.
Any other comments? Go ahead. You can, at the microphone. Name, please, again.
Jane Legault, 1218 Berlin Street. I just wanted to comment on the fact that, Brennan, is it? Brennan. In the form of the petition that was circulated and given to Mr. Hackett, and I have the comment, the original of that, that would include people who were on the other side of Berlin Street, but were not able to attend today, but did sign the petition.
I appreciate the clarification.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Steve Huda, and I live on 210 Vista Court, and I'm on the board of directors of Bethany Home also. Brennan, is the what do you call it, comprehensive plan for that area is what?
Residential.
And is it R3 or 1?
Comprehensive plan calls for residential. We don't have it broken down whether it's single family or multifamily.
Oh, okay.
Again, the surrounding neighborhood, there's a mix there. I mean, and again, I use that term partially loosely, but yes, the adjacent property owners to the north is single family, and there is single family across the street, but just south, there is multifamily, condo or apartment style development off of Evans Street that is in the earshot of this development, and that's R3. So this is not a spot zoning. This does meet the letter of the law for a comprehensive plan and the zoning around the area from going from an R1 to R3.
Okay, I don't know, I'm not clear on that. Maybe you are. Just because I've been to a lot of these meetings, and one of the questions that always seems to come up is, what does the comprehensive plan call for the
comprehensive plan calls for residential development. It doesn't identify whether it's single family or multifamily development. It just says residential development.
The comprehensive plan isn't broken into categories by zoning categories, R1, R2, B1, I1. It's by use.
Okay.
So you have to think of use, commercial, residential, industrial versus specific zoning
Okay, so it's
categories.
residential then?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, but it's not R1 or R3?
And assisted living, nursing home, these types of facilities are appropriate to put in residential, zoned in residential areas, however, as special uses, so that you do address truck deliveries and lighting and the heavy uses that you would typically see.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have any comments, commissioners, people in the audience?
I guess I just had a question. In looking at Brennan's recommendation, is the applicant accepting of the conditions? If this were to be recommended tonight, are all the conditions that are laid out? Because he has quite a few in here in the special use. Are those acceptable? I mean, there's building material issues and many things that have been talked about previously, but or have you not gone through that to that degree yet?
Pauline Darling, Bethany Home, 1226 Berlin Street. We have reviewed these and we are in agreement. The one concern that we would have would be the cost of the anticipated stone and brick, that could make the project unaffordable to go that much. And to be honest, I'll just throw this in here. I feel that the brick really makes, somebody said, I think Lori said it, it's like an industrial building, and I think, okay, so somebody said, it does, I think the brick makes it look a little more solid and a little more bold right there on that corner, and we were trying to soften it up. So that would be our only.
Okay. Brendan, could you read that recommendation specifically? I mean, if there's an issue with that.
If you're looking at underneath elevations, Pauline, are you looking at item number 4? There's two issues that I guess I want to address when it comes to the elevations. One is just we'll speak of the 3-story skilled nursing facility. I think the architect has done an excellent job to this point of the proposed building materials that they're looking at right now between the stone and the brick. And originally they were proposing hardy plank. This material board that I have in front of me that's on the board on the corner here right now was proposing vinyl. And I feel it just from a long-term sustainable standpoint and everything else, it would be preferred to go back to the hardy plank material that was originally proposed. Secondarily, the 20 units, RCAC units, the condition from 1987 identified that the project needs to be primarily of brick material. So I am following the 1987 special use permit that was granted by the city council and continuing that recommendation that the proposed 20 units, RCAC units, be primarily composed of brick. The proposed units that you have right now shows minimal brick or stone on the bottom and the rest of the unit being of vinyl siding. So in my opinion, where the cost may be increased is mainly on the RCAC units. The condition that I put in here for the additional building articulation was really emphasizing maybe, bringing some of the stone up, minimizing some of the brick, but potentially talking about some additional bump outs. I don't think that has a significant cost on the building at the end of the day.
Okay. Anybody else that would like to make a comment? Yes, sir.
Just a quick note about the brick.
Can you give your name again?
Sorry. Larry Schneider with Plunkett Racich Architects in Milwaukee.
Thank you.
Relative to the resolution for the RCAC edition, that it did talk about all brick. The building isn't all brick. It's got vinyl gables and vinyl underneath the windows. It's mostly brick, and we certainly would be willing to look at how we can meet the intent of where the brick and vinyl is, or brick and siding is. That's just a clarification.
Okay.
Well, Your Honor, as in other projects, when we approve or disapprove with the conditions based upon the office of our own engineering staff and our own planning staff, they would have to meet to the satisfaction of our in-house people. And assuming they did that, they could move forward. So, I mean, that's something that they're gonna have to discuss maybe in the future. If it's too costly, well, then they'll have to work something else out. But that's really not what we're here to talk about tonight so much, because that'll be the internal our discussion with the Bethany people, right?
Well,
I can tell you, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel confident that we can find a resolution.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think there's, what we're speaking of and what's being proposed has a significant increase in cost on the building. I believe there's alternative building materials out there, as we've seen with the detached garage ordinance that we've talked about. I think there's building materials out there that would be suitable, that would meet the intent of the 1987 resolution and the intent of the Planning Commission at the end of the day.
So if we include the recommendations from your office, it's subject to the approval
Correct.
that you would have.
Yes.
Any other comments? Any?
Ready for the question?
If you want to, yeah, that would be
I
fine.
don't want to if we want to have more discussion.
No, I mean, we can always have more discussion after a motion, if we would like.
I'm actually entertaining maybe wanting to table it, because I personally have not been out there. I might just go out there and see what we're looking at.
You wanna make that
there's
as
a
a-
lot of pictures, but it doesn't do justice to actually going out there. With all the opposition, I think we need to do justice to all of us. I don't know if any of the other commissioners have been out there. Maybe some of the other alderpersons that are going to have to make, decide on the vote that are here, they may want to go out there as well. We want to make best decision, and maybe some of this stuff is just talked about trying to appease some of the neighbors here, because at this point I don't see us stopping the project, but I do want to be sensitive to the neighbors and come up with some compromise and resolution and making them happy. I don't want them upset, forever that this building is here and they didn't get their say in what to do to buffer between their properties. So I don't know, what are the other commissioners? How do you feel about it?
I lean toward what you're saying, Eric, especially since this is in my district. And I did not know anything about it until I got the packet, look at it. So I'd like to get out there and take a look at it myself.
So just to be clear, Brennan, if they did not put that roof on to cover everything, it could go through as a project if we left it R1.
If you left it R1, but you'd still have to approve a special use permit.
And I think also staff would not necessarily be in recommendation of that. As gentleman, Mr. Bidwell talked about earlier, our ordinance actually was changed for the Quick Trip project, spurred a change in our zoning ordinance for that building with the realization that our height restrictions were too low for that type of commercial use. So
Personally, I wouldn't want to see it without the roof, but I'm just thinking.
right,
of
but I think as a
neighbors.
staff, I don't think we would be recommending a flat roof with exposed mechanical. So I think that project could come forth, but I don't think as a staff, there'd be a support.
It would not receive favorable approval from, at least from myself, for that, no.
Let me go back to Eric's comment. Eric, if you wanted to table it, what are you actually tabling? The whole process again? Or do you want another public hearing? Do you want another month to review? What do you want?
If I'm having to make a vote on something, I'd like to at least be out there, see it for myself.
Okay, so, but what does that mean?
I don't necessarily think we have to do all this over again, but as far as can we table it until our next city plan, or even discuss it, I don't know, at the council level? I don't know, I'm open to suggestions, but I would like to take a look at it and.
Well, okay, let's ask Brennan. Brennan, if it's tabled, what does that mean from
If it's tabled, it would have to go to the December Plan Commission meeting, which would be, is it the 10th or the 17th, guys? Is it the
10th? It's the 10th, yeah.
Okay. The next time that you guys would see this would be December 10th.
And then would there be another open hearing?
It would just be the Plan Commission, so there would not be a public hearing for that. It would just be an action item for the rezone and special use permit at that time. Public is still available to come at that meeting.
But they aren't necessarily going to get 3 minutes every time for rebuttal and.
That is up to the discretion of
Well, I mean,
the
in
plan
generally
commission chair.
The public hearing, we have to notify, there's legal requirements for it. That's been taken care of already.
Also, Eric, though, you and I could have time before council. We'll revisit this before the council meeting.
Right, that's the other thing, of course, people, just a reminder to the audience here, you know, whatever recommendation we make, yay, nay, or table, the council is gonna get the same project next Tuesday, or is it next Tuesday?
18th.
Depending on what recommendation comes out of plan commission this
If
evening.
it's tabled, they will
If
not
it, if
get
it's
it.
tabled, it goes until December.
All right, that's true, that's true.
We
My mistake.
we got Alderperson Fensky would like to make a comment here.
Deb Fensky, 509 West Fulton. I just have a question for you guys. Is there any way that you can make the decision at council level? Because you should have been out there to look at this. I'm fortunate my mother lives there. She lives right on the end where all this stuff is going on. But I think these people have waited enough. The people in opposition, the people are in favor of it. Let's get this decided. So can we decide it at council level instead of having a recommendation? There's 5 of us here now. We can't vote on it, but why can't the council make the decision?
Ultimately, the council does make the
Yeah, well, if
decision.
we
It's just
recommend it,
whether
ultimately
we
the council
recommend
will.
it. Yes.
I appreciate the comment, Deb, and I don't disagree with you because ultimately, as they said, the council has to make the decision. But as a city planning commission, we have to feel comfortable with making some kind of recommendation. We have to either have to make a recommendation that to move forward with this or to deny it. And if we do either or, then it can go towards council. Okay? If we decide to table it, what it would do is it would come back to City Planning Commission and we would decide it in December. So, although I appreciate it, we do have, the commission has, and I am also, obviously, as the mayor, the chairman of the city council, too. So, I mean, you know, and Eric and Alan are both on the city council, too. So 3 of the 6 individuals that are here are on the city council and could be voting at that meeting also. Go ahead, Kay.
It would also give Brennan and the people from Bethany time to talk about the materials, and maybe the people who are affected on Berlin Street a chance to talk with the people from Bethany to get some of their questions answered. Could look a little bit at the landscaping.
So you're suggesting
I'm
then...
suggesting that we table it so they have a little extra time to do some of those things.
Well, again, if we want to move forward, I understand that. If we want to table it, I fully understand that also. If we do decide to table it, I'd like to add to that list also. I mean, I would, and this one wasn't my own idea, but it's not. I think it's a very good idea. If the people from Bethany Home would like to meet with the concerned residents, again, in a public forum type thing, that would be totally up to them. Maybe they would be able to get more understanding of what's going on. It sounds like there were some things that at the first meeting have changed and they just need further clarification of that. You know, we would be more than happy. Is that mine?
I think it's you.
Yeah, that's mine, so I'll talk loud instead. You know, I mean, if you would like mediation at that, we could certainly offer that type idea, just so we have somebody that is the sergeant of arms, basically, at that meeting to handle that, or Robert Rules of Order. But we could certainly do that. I don't think that's a bad idea. I think it's actually a good idea. I have a little bit of concern about, I'm still concerned about the 50%. Our rezone, or our zoning says that it has to be at least 50% if it's R3. I'd like to do a little bit more research on that to find out if we're okay. And again, Brennan, I appreciate your comments and believe fully, but I would like to see some examples of that. So I would certainly like to see that part of it. That would also give us an opportunity to discuss the outer part of the one thing that Bethany Pauline doesn't seem to be in agreement with. That would give us enough time for them to discuss it with Brennan to get that all hashed out by the December meeting. There was one other. Oh, and we could start the discussion on the pilot fee. We might have something in place by then, you know, for that too. And that's a very important part to us.
Yeah, but that still doesn't come back to us.
It does. It does, because if they don't agree on the pilot fee, then this project won't work. It doesn't happen. So, you know, that it has to come to city council. It might not come here to city planning, but to know what that number might be.
Yeah, well, that's something the council's gonna have to do in regard to right now.
I mean, if you want to make a recommendation to move it to council, you have every right to do that. But again, I think the only way you can really do that is either to say that you're in favor of the project or you're against the project. And I'm not hearing that from everybody.
I'm going to make the motion that, excuse me, that we table both the rezoning and the special use permit to our next meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Keelan and a second by Olson that this rezoning of Bethany Home and the special use permit both be tabled and discussed again at our next regular scheduled City Planning Commission meeting, which is December 10th. And that meeting will be at 5:15 p.m. December 10th at 5:15 p.m. If you'd like an agenda of that, you would have to contact either Brennan's office or the clerk's office to get an agenda. This will not be the same as when you had a public hearing where the people within a certain distance will get an agenda. This will be something you'll have to request. But again, that's why I'm repeating it. It's December 10th at 5:15 in this same room. Any other discussion?
Mayor Smith, just to go along with your comments of earlier, and I've indirectly had this conversation with Bethany Homes as well. Whether it's myself, or myself and John, whatever it is, I'm willing to help facilitate that. Again, at the end of the day, I mean, it's the recommendation that's coming out of my department to the Planning Commission, to the City Council, and if there's anything that, from a staff level perspective, that I can assist with or try to get clarification for not only questions from the Planning Commission, but also concerned residents, I'm willing to sit down with people if it has to be after hours because of work schedules. I'm willing to do that to facilitate that. So I kind of leave that in the court of the applicant. If that is something that you would like to organize with the residents within the area, have another open house or modified open house, more than willing to facilitate that, whether it's here or at your facility. We can certainly do that. We can open up the City Hall, one of the library rooms, for that open house meeting to discuss any open issues that are still present by neighbors as well. And I can also report back if there is any comments from that meeting as well.
Absolutely. And if you would like to talk to any of the individual commissioners or council members, you have the ability to do that. If you just go to our website, you would either get our email address or our phone numbers on those websites, as well as the other council members. I see Scott Perchatsky here and Steve Hackett is here. I thought I saw Henry here too, our city administrator. Oh, and Deb, I'm sorry. She was already up here once. And I think Henry was here at one time too, our city administrator. So, okay, are you ready to vote? Just do a voice vote? Are we okay with that?
I'm gonna vote no, so just so you know that.
Okay, all right. Thanks for the warning. All in favor of tabling this till the next meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against?
Aye.
And I abstain.
Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor, 1 no, and 1 abstention. Motion carries, so it will be tabled till our December 10th meeting at 5:15. All right, thank you everybody for attending. We're not done yet. City Planning Commissioners, don't leave yet. We have a couple more items. Please try to keep your voices down while we finish up our meeting here.
You just go ahead.
Huh?
You can go ahead if you want. Talk over them.
You just got a packet a couple days ago, though, with all the information.
Yeah, I know.
Not all the details.
School board meeting? Yeah, I know. Well, and that's why I didn't. Well, who knows? Everybody, I'm sorry. We are still in session. I would ask that you please leave or sit and listen so that we don't have to shout over you. Appreciate it. Again, we have the audience, the television audience that is attending here. There is no reason why you have to leave, but we would ask that you keep your voices down for us. Thank you. We're going to go on to reports then. This is the corrected September 2014 building permits.
Yeah.
Brennan, go ahead.
Sorry about that. In your packet, you have the corrected September building permit log and then also the October permit log. As for development updates, I don't have too many this month. I've been working on this project, but what I can fill you in on is still working on the Main Street project right now. We're going to have a meeting for the visioning committee in December, so that project is still moving along well. And that's pretty much it. I wasn't too prepared for a development update tonight because we were working on this project. So
Just give us just a real quick update on the, is it Dollar General or whatever, the Dollar Tree or the?
Yeah, Dollar Tree. They do have approvals in place. We have worked through with the applicant some legal issues with the two property owners, so they have come to a formal agreement. We have not seen revised engineering plans yet, so John has not approved them, but they at least have in a handshake agreement, a cross-access easement approval. So we're still working on that project. Subway, thought was going to start soon. His plans are approved, but I have not spoken to Dean lately on when that project is actually going to break ground. More than likely, it'll probably be pushed off to the spring now. So.
Okay. But it's still there.
It's still there. Yep.
All right. Okay, anything else for the good of the meeting tonight? If not, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Lutzy, second by Olson, that we adjourn till our next regular scheduled meeting. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Against?
That will get a unanimous vote.
Motion is carried. We are adjourned at 7:24 PM. Thank you.